Long Island Boat and Fishing Show is back at the Nassau Coliseum, March 13th through 15th. Long Island's top dealers will be there with huge savings on boats, tackle, personal watercrafts, and the latest electronics. This show has it all. Children will be entertained by Twiggy, the water skiing squirrel. Enjoy free face painting. Plus, on Saturday and Sunday, the first 100 kids get a free life vest, free parking all weekend, and Friday, it's free Heroes Day admission for military and first responders. 3 days only, March 13th through 15th. Visit nyboatshows.com for details.
He's at war with woke.
Joe Concha
thinks liberals are a joke.
Joe Concha.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
Pearl Jam tonight. We've been in the 80s for a while, and even the 70s last night with the Eagles, but Pearl Jam, when you think back of best bands in the 90s, I don't know, find me a better one. You can make the argument for Stone Temple Pilots, but no, very small resume. Nirvana, small resume. It doesn't help when the lead singer, commits suicide. Kev, got to bring you in here. Where do you come down on this?
Pearl Jam's the premier band of the 90s.
Yeah, I agree. Grunge, Seattle. You ever see Singles, which is one of the best movies in the 90s of all time?
No, I have not.
What? Oh, my goodness gracious. All right. Well, anyway, Eddie Vedder.
Is Eddie Vedder in that?
He is.
Yeah, he did a really good job, apparently, right?
Oh, he was excellent. It's a small role, but the guy... Trust me, you got to watch that tonight. Can you do that for me, please?
Yeah, that'll be the number one thing I do.
All right. I'm sure you're going to be right on it. So, yeah, tomorrow I have a St. Patrick's Day party to go to at my sister-in-law's house, which is incredible. They get bagpipe guy, and it's 500 people. It's insane. They do this every year, and the amount of food and just everything is, for a half Irish guy, incredible. So St. Patrick's Day weekend starts. Obviously, St. Patrick's Day, I believe, is next Tuesday, and that will be that. Did you know, actually, Kevin, that in Ireland, in Dublin, St. Patrick's Day is a very kind of somber thing where you go to church and there's not a lot of celebrations. It's the opposite of New York City.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I know they celebrated differently, but I didn't know it was a somber thing.
Yeah. It's more not here. That's certainly for sure, where you have people literally vomiting on Fifth Avenue by around 11 a.m. But that's a thing. Never did it. But in Hoboken, actually, we used to do that. I didn't do that, but it was a thing. Anyway, let's move on to, instead of vomit, let's go on to the more classy kind of culinary things, which is steak and lobster. And it is unbelievable how we had a controversy over the fact that our Secretary of War, and Pete Hegseth, actually decided that, you know what, we have a big budget here at the Department of Defense, Department of War, and we're going to give our troops steak and lobster before they go off to war. And what we had was, which is amazing to me, controversy over this from the left, because they said, oh, well, they thought that Pete Hegseth himself was eating millions of dollars of lobster tails and steak. This is how ridiculous our media has become. But let's go to cut number 11 here, Kevin. Cut number 11, and you'll hear exactly what I'm talking about. Go.
Hegseth claimed his focus was going to be on warfighting and lethality, but it sure seems like his actual priorities are very different. So the Pentagon seems a lot more focused on fancy meals and high-end instruments than laying out concrete goals for the war in Iran, which might explain why no one seems to know what we're actually doing there. No wonder Hegseth always looks miserable. He's 24/7 meat constipated.
It's so funny. No, this is a guy who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, unlike a weenie like Seth Meyers, late night comedy, I guess that is, who, again, everything the Trump administration does, 94% of all jokes have been negative about the U.S. war against Iran, from Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel. I can't even like spit out the words here as far as just how insufferable these people are, how horrible they are. It's not even funny, quite frankly. So we're going to criticize the U.S. military apparatus getting steak and lobster before they go off to war. Oh, that's nice. Let's hear from Joey Jones, my colleague and friend over at Fox News, who talked about when now remember Joey Jones lost his legs. And, you know, when I work with him, you see him walk in and he has prosthetic legs now. But imagine the sacrifice that he has gone through. And now he's married. He has kids. That's great. But at the same time, to criticize or at least say that, I guess that what Seth Meyers was saying is that the U.S. military shouldn't get steak and lobster, given they're not sitting in a comfy studio in New York City at 30 Rock like Seth or like Colbert over at the Ed Sullivan Theater on 53rd Street or a Jimmy Kimmel out in Hollywood in Los Angeles. Anyway, here's Joey talking about his one steak and lobster night when he was in battle. And this is everything. Cut number 9. Go.
Like, we've been out all day. It's a tough day. It's like, man, I just hope we get a decent MRE. And then somebody comes around the corner like, hey, guys, it's steak and lobster night. It's surf and turf. A log train had come in, which was insane because the route was littered with IEDs. And now I've got another picture of the three of us eating steak in the room that we lived in later that night. What's funny is the look on our faces from the one picture to the other is about the same because we're in war. But after that day, for weeks, we talked about steak and lobster nights. The only one I've ever gotten overseas.
Isn't that nice? Right? I mean, MRE, right? Many eat basically meals is what the acronym stands for. And that one night, as Joey described, is the one night like you remember in all those days and nights in war where you're trying to avoid IEDs in Afghanistan and Iraq. And it's just nice to be appreciated, I'm sure. But that's what we get from our media and from late night comedians. Here's Tim Burchett as well, Senator, Tennessee, also talking about steak and lobster for troops. And, you know, I love the analogy and the comparisons that he uses here. This is cut number 2. Go.
But it's very disingenuous for these Democrat congressmen and senators to point out how much money we're spending on these steak and lobster meals when you know every dadgum night they're going out with some fat cat lobbyist and he or she's feeding them, guess what, steak and lobster. And somebody's paying for that. And it's going to end up being you and me eventually. So, and then where were they during the Biden administration? We were spending millions of dollars on drag shows.
Yeah. So everybody's worried about the money being spent on steak and lobster for troops now, Democrats or late night comedians. But hey, when we had drag queens performing for troops, they didn't have any problem with this. Of course they didn't. Anyway, Mr. Wonderful. I love this guy. He goes on CNN and eviscerates people. He's almost as good, Kevin O'Leary, as Scott Jennings as far as making an argument, but doing so in a very entertaining and comedic fashion. And here he is on the stock market, the Iran war, and why he believes, like most other sane people who study the markets, this thing isn't going to last. Forget 30 days, 60 days, and things are going to go back to normal quite quickly. This is cut number 13. Go.
To keep oil. And frankly, the market right now thinks this conflict, excursion, whatever you want to call it, isn't going to last more than maybe 60 days. At some point, the Iranians run out of missiles. That seems to be their proxy to cause havoc, and they're certainly getting a pounding. Drones. And I would imagine at some point they say, look, we're going to stop, let's make a deal. It's really about the flow of the commodity. And politically, though, you know, here we are. You count the days. We haven't had any impact on input costs on any sector of the economy domestically yet. But if you said to me that we're still north of $100 or close to it in say 6 weeks, I'd feel that pain in my companies.
Oh, that is
exactly right. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's not worth $1 billion for anything. Meanwhile, if you want to be completely and totally disturbed, Nick Shirley, who, you know, you got to admire this. And I wonder, if I was 23 years old and I had the ability just to go places and record people and get them on the record on XYZ, could I have done this? Now, back in my day, because I'm old-ish, in the 90s, you'd have to like literally carry like a camera and film things, but there was no YouTube to upload it onto. So even if you recorded certain things, to get it out to millions of people, billions of people, was not readily available in the 90s. Nick Shirley understands that this is something that he can do as far as just on his phone, just video people, upload, and then watch the reactions from the general public in the world. Nick Shirley, a 23-year-old journalist, right? And I'll call him that because he's doing the hard work. Remember, this guy went to Minneapolis and exposed all of that fraud in a way that CBS, NBC, ABC, all those resources would not send one reporter there. And he exposed everything that was going on in terms of $9, $10, $15 billion of fraud carried out by the Somali community. Nick Shirley was the guy that helped expose that just with one camera on his own, no team, no production staff, just a guy with a camera who then can upload things to YouTube and X and TikTok. And before you know it, everything is off and running. Here he is, Nick Shirley, interviewing Muslim American students and asked them, who would you fight for? Your old country, wherever you're from, that isn't the United States, or the one you're living in now in terms of the United States? Here are the answers. If you want to be completely horrified, well, you got your soundbite. Cut 15, go.
Now you have all these Islam men yelling Allah Akbar. I have a question for you guys. If America were to get in a war with a country like Iraq, who would you guys defend, America or Iraq?
We won't get in a war. That's not permissible for us. But at the same time,
who would you defend first?
We would support our brothers in Iraq. That's the only way.
So you wouldn't defend America?
We would not defend America.
But you're American.
But at the same time, listen. At the same time, America is our country because we were born here. But in our Islamic book, we're not allowed to fight with people that are against our religion. So we just take up the jail time.
So you would not.
What we do.
So you would not defend America.
I would go to jail.
Oh, that's great. Great. So all these people that we have naturalized here, as far as people that came over here from other countries, especially the Middle East, whether we're talking about Iraq, Afghanistan, Jordan, Syria, name your country. In the end, they will be loyal to the country they came from. And therefore, if given the choice, they will fight against literally the country that they're citizens in, as opposed to, I mean, that's all you need to know. We have a legal immigration problem, people. There's a serious, serious problem right now in this country. Forget illegal immigration. We are talking about legal immigration. And if you listen to the actual stats as far as what is happening here, let me tell you what's going on. All right. The shooter in Austin, Texas, naturalized citizen at Old Dominion. Again, a guy yelled Allahu Akbar before killing a member of the ROTC, naturalized citizen. The New York City teen bombers over the weekend, Upper East Side, children of naturalized citizens. The Michigan synagogue attack, where a guy literally drove into a synagogue that was mostly having preschool at that point, children between the ages of 1 and 5, looking to kill them all. Naturalized citizen. Who are we giving citizenship to in this country? We have a legal immigration problem. That is certainly for sure. Oh, man. Anyway, Better Man, Pearl Jam, one of my least favorite Pearl Jam songs, but it was one of their most popular. It's when they became mainstream, and that bothered me. Anyway, we're back in the 90s. This is Joe Concha in 2026. This is Concha at Night. Back with so much more in just a moment.
Liberalism is a no-go. The Joe Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
I mean, when they came around in 1992 on the mainstream, 91 I think it was actually, this was something like a sound we haven't heard before. Eddie Vedder, Pearl Jam. Just awesome. Brings me back to college, actually, where I have a ticket, I swear to you, Ritchie Coliseum, University of Maryland. You could see Pearl Jam for $8 before they became a thing. So there you go. We also had Hootie and the Blowfish there as well. I mean, when you look back at the bands that we had to go through Ritchie Coliseum in College Park, I mean, the cost of a ticket now to see Pearl Jam, for example, if they where they go back on tour, I'm not sure if they even are. We're talking like hundreds of dollars easily. So $8, not a bad deal. I have the photo. I swear to God, I'll share it on my social media account, Joe Concha TV at the Twitter. Anyway, let's play this real quick. Norm Macdonald. We like to do flashbacks on this show, I got to admit, because Norm particularly is so awesome. Here he is at the ESPYs in 97, I believe this was, talking about Charles Woodson winning the Athlete of the Year award. And, well, there's an OJ comparison that is just beyond funny. Cut number 16, go.
And there's Charles Woodson. How about that? How what a season he had. Great, man. He became the first defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy. And congratulations, Charles. That is something that no one can ever take away from you. Unless you kill your wife and a waiter, in which case...
no.
It's a word of advice. Folks, before we can begin handing out our awards tonight...
Oh, man. And Norm got fired from Saturday Night Live as a result of the OJ jokes, because the guy who ran NBC at the time, or at least the sports department, did not like the OJ jokes because OJ was a close friend of his. But, well, in retrospect, who was right and who was wrong? Anyway, got any Pearl Jam there, Kev? Because we got to go, right? And let's just cue it up. There it is. Eddie Vedder. What a voice. My goodness gracious. Back with more and so much more in just a moment. The Joe Concha Show.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
Live. This was their first big hit. And you heard it, you're like, Pearl Jam, they might be onto something here. Anyway, it's Pearl Jam night on a Friday night here in New York City and around the country. Well, you know, we keep hearing from Democrats how, boy, the SAVE Act is going to really make it hard to vote in this country. It's going to be almost impossible, quite frankly, if you're a married woman or you're a black woman. Well, here's a clip of literally a black married woman explaining how long it took for her to register to vote. And boy, it's really a long time. No, actually, it isn't. Cut number 1, go.
To the Hakeem Jeffries and the Chuck Schumers of our country, I just want to let you know that as a black woman, as a married woman, in the last 2 years, I've gotten married, I've changed my name, and I've changed addresses. And it took me approximately 5 minutes to register to vote. So I just want to let you know, before you continue to pander to black people, to married people, I'm not politically inept. I'm more than capable of registering to vote. I do have the proper identification.
Thank you. Again, this is an 85-15 issue, people, as far as voter ID. And what we're hearing now from folks within the Senate is that John Thune, who a lot of you out there are not happy with right now, but he is trying, according to Mike Lee, Senator Utah, to make sure the SAVE Act can be passed through some sort of procedure that none of us understand. Anyway, I'll let Mike Lee explain it further. This is cut number 12. Cut number 12. Go.
The bill needs to remain on the Senate floor before we file cloture on the bill for as long as it takes to get it done. Now, the fact that Leader Thune and his office have been willing to work with us on this, and they appear open to a variation of that, is a good thing. So let's keep up the momentum. Let's encourage them to continue to do this. Let's put the bill on the floor. Let's make those who want to filibuster speak and keep it on there as long as possible. Thanks so much.
All right. Let's be very clear. I think you guys know this out here, that if the Republican Party does not pass the SAVE Act, because you know Democrats would find a way. Who cares about the proper procedure? As long as you get the damn thing passed, get thing passed. And if this does not happen on the GOP side, you will see a bloodbath as far as a massive blue wave in November in the midterms. Because if you think that anybody's going to be motivated to turn out after you have the Senate, the Congress, and the executive branch in terms of the Oval Office, and you can't pass the SAVE Act, which is very, very important to many Republican voters, you will depress the base, and then all those 1 or 2 point percentage swing districts will all go Democrat. All of them. And you're going to have Hakeem Jeffries as your House Speaker, who will immediately have Donald Trump in impeachment hearings in perpetuity. And anything you wanted passed from the Trump administration will die. That is an absolute guarantee. So Thune better figure this out in a hurry, or else he will be the ultimate bad guy within the MAGA universe. And by the way, it's not about MAGA. It's not about, hey, do this for Trump because Trump wants it. It's common sense. I have said this over and over again. Everybody in this country wants voter ID to be law. It's that simple. And I'm not talking about Republicans, black voters, Democratic voters, independent voters. Everybody wants this thing passed. So get it done. Figure it out. Don't tell me about procedure and what can pass and what can't. A talking filibuster, from what everybody I've spoken to, like Jonathan Turley, says that this thing can be done. So do it. Or else you will lose everything. And then going into the 2028 elections, who knows? I mean, I think if Marco Rubio is the nominee, and I've shared this theory before, I'll share it again in case you weren't listening earlier in the week. I could see a JD Vance. I've met JD. I've spoken to JD. I really like JD, right? And I think many of you do as well. But I think this is a guy who has 4 very young children at home. And I think that when you look at the fact that he's 41 years old, that's a 41. He sees, you know what? I can run for president another time. I want to be there to raise my kids. You can say it's selfish. It's not. It's not. I have 2. Well, they're not so young anymore, I guess, 10 and 12. That's still young, right? I could see him totally saying, you know what? I'm going to sit this one out, give it to Marco, and let him be the nominee. I could totally see this scenario happening. And if that happens, Democrats try to attack Marco Rubio sometime. Try to paint him as an extremist, or try to corner him in some sort of interview with hostile media. This guy is flawless, completely and totally flawless. I wouldn't have said that in 2016. I think he was nervous. I think he was contrived. I think it was scripted. I think he drank way too much water. This is not the guy now. All right. He has been the MVP of this administration, bar none. Bar none. He has 18 jobs within the administration. That's got to tell you something. And speaking fluent Spanish and being a guy who came over with his parents from Cuba to escape that regime, attack that story. Go ahead. Be my guest. Not that JD story is, it also is very inspiring. But in the end, you give me Gavin Newsom versus Marco Rubio, and you will see a landslide like we have not seen in years. Because one is absolutely phony, who just wants power, and the other one actually is intelligent, is in control, knows his stuff, and does not get bullied. That's the bottom line. So, however, if you don't pass the SAVE Act, then suddenly Republicans will not be trusted in any way, shape, or form, outside of Trump, who really wants this to be passed. And then it's a toss-up, quite frankly. So get this thing done. Anyway, here is the aforementioned Vice President and JD Vance on why not pass the SAVE Act if you are a Democrat. And he makes a very, very good argument. The Vice President does. This is cut number 8. Go.
Here's the thing, though. Even if you take the Democrats at their word, even if illegal aliens voting is very rare, then why don't we ban it anyway? It's not that complicated. It is one thing to say, I don't get it. The Democrats say, this never happens, or it happens only very rarely, on the one hand, and on the other hand, we must not stop it. It doesn't make a damn bit of sense. We need to get all illegal aliens stopping from voting in our elections. It's very common sense stuff.
Ain't wrong. Not wrong at all. If it's such a problem, if you say that, if you're a Democrat, that, well, there really isn't any voter fraud, then pass the thing if it's not that big of a deal. But, well, they still won't, because we know why they won't pass that. No question. Anyway, the president announcing today, and Donald Trump, that, well, when the Olympics come to Los Angeles and other parts of the country in 2028, well, good news. Men will not be able to compete against women in sports in the Olympic Games. Thank God. Cut number 18. Go.
We'll be okay. And we have put the world on notice that America will not allow men to compete against women in the 2028 Olympics, where we have the Olympics. And we have the Olympics, we have the World Cup coming up, and we have 20, the biggest is 250.
That's right. Boy, if you're a politician, you're the sitting president, that ain't bad. 250th anniversary coming up this summer, where they're literally going to drop the ball in Times Square on July 4th, which I don't know, in my lifetime I've never seen. So that's kind of cool. And then UFC fights on the south lawn of the White House, where I've been. Trust me, you could put a nice stadium back there. And then, oh, by the way, the World Cup also coming. And then the Olympics as well, all under Trump's watch. Politically, from an optics perspective, that is awesome. And to be able to say, as a U.S. president, that will not have men competing against women in sports like boxing, that's a very, very good thing. I love this clip here. This is Jake Paul, who is like the YouTube influencer / fighter. I hated the fact that he fought Mike Tyson. Tyson was nearly 60 years old. I swear, there's something wrong with that fight, because I'm convinced that Tyson should have knocked him out in about 8 seconds. I know I'm like thinking of like 1986 Tyson, but still, if you give him a round, I would think he would knock this skinny guy out. But it didn't happen. That bothered me. There's something wrong with that fight. Anyway, Jake Paul interviewed the president, however, all of that said, and asked a very good question, and Trump gave a very Trumpian answer. This is cut number 19, Kevin. Cut number 19, go.
But I always ask people this question. I think it's super interesting. If you could come back in history and reincarnate and like be able to experience someone else's life, who would you come back in history as?
That's a very interesting question. Maybe Donald Trump right now. I think Donald Trump right now. My life is very exciting. I have to be honest. I'm thinking about other lives. I think my life is maybe more exciting.
Yeah, if you're going to come back as anybody, in terms of thinking about the most transformational people in the history of the world, I'm not saying this as hyperbole, but seriously, you think about people who have had an impact on this planet. I can't get past Donald Trump being in the top 10, right? In terms of changing everything that we know and doing things that we haven't seen from almost any American president. So, yeah, if you're going to be reincarnated and you're Trump, why not come back as yourself? I suppose. I'm trying to think, like, Kevin, if I could bring you in here, and I'm going to put you on the spot while I think about my answer, because I have no idea what my answer is, so I'm stalling for time. Who would you come back as if you could be reincarnated?
I always heard that story about how Elvis would take his private jet to go to Colorado to get a sandwich he really likes. So, like, that sounds like the height of luxury. Even though it didn't end well, that sounds like a hell of a run to be on.
Is that fat 70s Elvis or like
that was
good-looking
like
60s
what,
Elvis?
74 to 76 Elvis.
Vegas Elvis.
Yeah, exactly. And he would literally take a private jet to Colorado and have a hollowed out hoagie with bacon and peanut butter in it.
Yeah.
Just sounds amazing.
That sounds very Elvis-like. Okay. Hence the weight gain, I suppose. I think I would come back as, I don't know, I'm a Michael Jordan guy. So to play baseball and football, I get he didn't play baseball professionally, even though he was in the minor leagues and everything he went through at North Carolina, then the Bulls. He owns like NASCAR teams now. That would be kind of a cool person to come back as. Yeah.
That's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I don't think I want to live that. That's true. That's why he played baseball, by the way, because his dad always wanted him to play baseball. So when his dad died, that's why he left basketball. Again, at the peak of his career, they just won 3 straight championships and then played for the Birmingham Barons for 2 years and then came back and then won another 3 championships. Like, you take 2 years off from basketball, you're kind of old-ish for basketball at that point, then win 3 more. Yeah, you're right. I couldn't handle that. You're right. I don't know. Ernie Onassis, that's what I would come back as. That guy seemed to have a very happy life.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about it, Ernie. I mean, and then you're just, everybody loves you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the outpouring of love for Ernie, we'll see it probably for Chuck Scarborough as well, like Channel 4, like these people we grew up with on all those stations, 2, 4, and 7, and Warner Wolf as well, I'm sure. But either way, we got to go to break, Kev, right? We're about that time? Yes, we are. Have I got a little story for you? Oh, boy. I'm back in the 90s, and it's a great place to be. This is Pearl Jam night on Concha at night, a Friday night. We wrap this puppy up in just a moment.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
Jeremy, which I believe, Kevin, I will put you on the spot. This is September of 1994. All right. I'm going to
way more accurate or way more specific of a guess that I would go for.
Okay.
But I'm guessing that's true. That's not right.
Okay. Just jump in any time and say, actually, Joe, it was July 94, but I'm convinced this is 94, which is only 32 years ago. So, of course, I got to remember this stuff.
94 91.
I'm not even when?
91.
Oh God, no! Really? This is 91?
Apparently.
Oh boy, way off on that one.
Released in 92. Was written in 91.
It was written in 91, released in 92. All right, everybody, ignore me. I try to act like a savant when it comes to Pearl Jam. This was 92. All right, so this was alive, and all right, go figure. Anyway, let's hear from Ricky Gervais. This is a flashback, of course, and the Oscars are this Sunday on ABC. Conan O'Brien is the host, which, thank God, it's not Jimmy Kimmel. Thank effing God, it's not Jimmy Kimmel, because I don't need to hear that. I think Conan, at least, it tries to be a comedian. Anyway, here is Gervais with some advice to award winners when they get up to the podium, what you should and should not do. And this is hang it in the Louvre. Can you hang this in the Louvre as far as like a statement? Just print out the transcript. It's that good. Cut number 17. Go.
Don't use it as a platform to make a political speech, right? You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg. So, if you win, right, come up, accept your little award, thank your agent and your God, and f*** off. Okay?
Yes!
So,
boom.
It's already 3 hours long. Right, let's do the first award. The first award.
And you'll never guess what happened to Ricky Gervais. He was never invited back to host an award show again, because Hollywood did not like being spoken to in that regard. But it's true. And now, again, when you think of all the speeches during all the award shows over the years, that one withstands the test of time. Anyway, Zohran Mamdani, oh boy, speaking of speeches, well, here he was in front of reporters today, and he wants to entice millionaires to pay more to stay in New York City, because he believes that if you tax people more, therefore they'll stay because they want to make the city better in terms of all the things that he wants to give away for free. This person is insane. And New York, he's your mayor, but he actually made this argument, and every single millionaire that's left here, and there aren't many, is going to laugh at this and say, yeah, I'm off to Dallas now. I'm off to Miami now. I'm off to Nashville now. Go to another state that doesn't charge the taxes that they do in New York City. Why would I want to live here? And oh, by the way, the culture, crime, weather, everything else. Why would you stay here when you could pick up a company and go anywhere, and your employees can work from anywhere, because technology is what it is today? But this is the Mamdani pitch. I'm sure it's going to be very effective. Cut number 10, go.
Amidst being in the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, we already see an exodus of working and middle-class New Yorkers. So I don't have a hesitation in asking those who make the most amount of money in the city or the most profits in the city to pay a little bit more so that everyone can actually stay in this city. It's also something not just about justice or the ability for working-class people to live here. It is also actually about ensuring that corporations can continue to attract the top talent to this city.
I'm sorry, if I'm top talent, why the hell would I go to New York City? Oh, I got to give away half my paycheck and live in a place where I don't feel safe and have a mayor that basically seems to be more on the side of ISIS sympathizers and terrorists than, actual American citizens? Who the hell would come here at this point? Anyway. It is Jeremy. It is Pearl Jam. This was written in 1992 and released in 1991, Kev, right? 1992 released. Got that one wrong, but either way, it's Pearl Jam night here on the Joe Concha Show, which is called Concha at Night. We're back on Sunday, 11 a.m. for the Joe Concha Tunnel of Towers Foundation Sunday morning show. Until then, 2 words for you. Jeremy spoken. Now it's bye-bye.
The Tunnel to
to Towers Foundation honors the sacrifices of America's heroes. Heroes like U.S. Army Specialist Andy Keith Kingsley. Andy was part of the 82nd Airborne Division. He received various awards and decorations, including a Purple Heart. While deployed, Andy was catastrophically injured in combat. Andy and his family received a mortgage-free smart home from Tunnel to Towers. But many more heroes like Andy need your support. Donate $11 a month and amplify your impact by donating your car or land. Go to T2T.org.